Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Cocktails and Convo.
Welcome to Cocktails and Convo. I'm your host, Dr. Sean Rux. I'm excited and humbled to embark on this endeavor with you, and I'm really looking forward to chopping it up with some amazing individuals. You're probably asking yourselves right now, what is Cocktails and Convo? Well, listen, quite frankly, it's just that. Cocktails and Convo is a combination of smooth, informative dialogue regarding what's happening in our world today. Additionally, it's also a celebration of Black excellence and a venue to support, promote, and build on people who are about that work. So I really came up with the concept for this show because I love surrounding myself with people who are really influential, who really make me better, and they go out of their way to make other people better. You know, people who understand that making people better and pouring into others is how we make this entire world better. And on this show, we will discuss everything from politics, education, equity, and everything in between. So I have a great show lined up for you today. Once again, I thank you for joining me. I'm extremely excited about our guests who will be joining us. And now let's just jump right in. My first guest is an awesome person. He's an educational advocate who has about 27 years of experience in education. He's a lawyer for Durante Law Firm, as well as the president and CEO of Triad Consulting Strategies. So without further ado, I bring to you my first guest, Mr. Ruben Durante, Esquire. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on my show today. You're looking real sharp.
Thank you.
Looking real.
Thank you. So are you.
Well, thank you. I must admit, this is the first time I put on a full suit in like 4 months, right? You know, we've been in the house, social distancing, so I've been pretty fly from the chest up, but at the bottom, shorts, whatever. But I got the full suit on today, so I'm trying to. So I do want to say, as this is our first show, first episode, it's only right that we bring it in appropriately. Now, we know the name is Cocktails and Convo, but since this is the first episode, I had to step it up a notch, right? So today, instead of just a cocktail, we got to get this thing started with some Armand du Brignac.
Whoa.
You hear I pronounce that properly, right? Armand du Brignac. I had to let it flow a little bit. Of course, more popularly known as Ace of Spades.
I know that.
Are you ready to indulge with me?
Absolutely.
Because this is a. By the way, do you know why people toast?
I know why I toast.
Well, talk about it.
Celebrate, to acknowledge, to give well wishes, and to speak over the possibilities of this endeavor, this venture.
I love that. Celebrate, speak over the possibilities, and that's exactly what we're going to do today because Cocktails and Convo is all about building up. Just to give a little history lesson, it's interesting. I've read some things where it said, back in the day, people would actually put spiced toast in wine because the seasonings would charcoal and temper the flavor, right? And that's where it got the name toast from. But then I was also reading that by clinking of the glasses during the toast, it completed this drinking experience. And allegedly, the clinking of the glasses tapped into all 5 senses. Of course, and as you said, it was celebratory as well. But also, even back further in the medieval days, when they would often spike wine with poison, right? So in these places, if I was hosting a party, I would pour some of your wine into mine to drink to show that, it was nothing in it. However, if you trusted me, you would clink my glass instead as, nah, you don't have to do that. I trust you. So as we kick off this first episode of Cocktails and Convo, let us toast to trust. Let us toast to humility. Let us toast to Black excellence. And let us toast to continuous growth as men. Thank you.
Cheers, toast.
Cheers. Armand du Brignac.
Ace of Spades.
Ace of Spades. So let's just jump right in. So much happening in our world right now. Where do we begin?
I think what's going on in terms of rewriting and reshaping the destiny of America, that's a strong place to start because I think that actually influences everything else, the quality of education, the rights and expectations of our communities in terms of access to education for our young people, opportunities for business owners to thrive. So really, the whole George Floyd murder.
You were right there.
Because it's here, but it's been here for 400 years. It's been here if you think about everything that this country has written about in terms of the way they interact with people of color, especially black people. I think George Floyd just brought it full out, publicly and explicitly in the most raw way. So it's almost appropriate to start with that.
And how many George Floyds are actually in the United States, right? Countless. We have so many situations that happen that may not be as popular, right? But luckily, due to cell phones, we get to see, well, not even luckily, but we get to see so much of this happening. So are we going to make a shift, though? Granted, we got the George Floyd situation. We have so much protesting going on, and there's this momentum, if you will. Is it going to make a difference?
I think it's already made a difference from the point of view of allowing people, white people especially, who doubted the sincerity, the authenticity, and the things that black people have been complaining about literally for decades. I think it brought them to be present to our suffering. I think it also allowed for them to recognize just the level of inhumanity in the way some black people have been treated at the hands of some police officers. You know, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is to recognize that the issue is the system. It's not individual people. You know, as much as Officer Chauvin, for example, the man who stared into the camera coldly for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, looking at us saying, "And what?" He is allowed by a system, a law enforcement system, a criminal justice system, to have the audacity to think, I can do this and get away with it. The same way with Rayshard Brooks. A basic stop, again, no one is lionizing him. No one is saying that what Rayshard Brooks did was right in terms of possibly driving under the influence.
Right.
But driving under the influence should never be a death sentence.
Absolutely not.
And when you consider all of the events that took place, you can't tell me that it's a logical conclusion that someone is running away from the police and they get shot twice. It's like Walter Scott, it's like Tamir Rice, it's like Michael Brown, it's like Trayvon Martin, it's like Philando Castile. There's so many instances of black lives just taken way before their time.
Every time you leave the house, it could be your last time, right? But so understanding that these unfortunate incidents are happening around our country, just so how you explained it, and we hear a lot of talk now about defunding police. Is that the answer?
I think that, and let me go back a second, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, because as a culture, as a society, I think we so easily forget that black women are also in risk and at risk of the same injustices that men of color have experienced. Now, you know, there's a saying, and I heard that from Dr. King, you know, a budget is a moral document. So when we say defund the police, it's not to say that there's not a place for law enforcement, because in a democracy, we believe in a rule of law. But the question is how you expend your dollars communicates your priorities.
Absolutely.
So when we say defund the police, what we're really saying is let's prioritize safety, let's prioritize educational opportunities, let's prioritize all of the things that can prevent folks from getting into a life of crime. So is there a place for the police? Absolutely. But there is a greater place for a social service net. There's a greater place for quality education. I was doing some math, and I've been joking around with people. I'm like, if you took $1 billion out of the New York City Police Department, let's say, every school could have a $500,000 per year beacon program. Just think about that. Imagine every school becoming a hub of opportunities from 2 o'clock to 10 p.m. every day. every single school. So what you've really created, you're reimagining a city that is going to foster a thriving economy and also a thriving environment where children are safe, where parents know where their children are, where adults in our communities can go to get GED or high school education test preparation or civics education, knowing how to vote and why to vote and for whom to vote. All of these things to me are interconnected. So it's not about defunding the police in revenge or in reaction as much as it is to reimagine a society that fosters safety and not occupation.
And that's the key word. You keep saying it. You said it several times, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying. That word reimagine, right? And when we think about reimagine, it's really taking our mental models of how we see the world, how we see certain systems, and throwing that away and doing something completely different. You know, when we think about the idea of police, the idea is to serve and protect and to keep us safe. But if time after time after time after time we're seeing that that's not the case, then we need to reimagine what policing could really be like. And also digging a little further, what does safety look like? Like, we think about safety, okay, we need police to keep us safe. Do we need police to keep us safe? Or is there something else that we can tap into like those other?
You know, it's the same way when we talk about health, right? Mm-hmm. Like, health isn't not being sick. Health is a presence of being whole. So when you think about safety, safety isn't just not being exposed to violence. Safety is also about the presence of well-being. Absolutely. And by safety, I'm not just talking about someone not robbing me of my personal property. But if we're in a community and people are robbing us of our feeling of being a citizen, that's just as evil, that's just as wrong as if a person is robbing you of your livelihood or robbing you of your life.
Or robbing you of opportunity.
Robbing you of opportunity. So, for example, for me, when I think of safety, I think of being able to drive in whatever car that I can afford to buy without having to worry about sirens turning on behind me, stopping me, questioning me. Now, if I'm almost a 50-year-old black man, well-educated, hardworking, tax-paying, and have the means to purchase, let's say, an expensive convertible. If I choose to purchase it, I should be able to drive it without anyone stopping me, asking me, is this car legally mine?
You should, but you can't.
And that's where the lack of safety comes in, right? Now, a police officer can stop me and ask me to show my license, run my registration, if I'm driving dangerously, if I'm swerving, if I appear to be under the influence. But if I'm simply conducting my business legally, and this person takes it upon himself or herself to humiliate me, to ask me to justify my driving this car, that is taking away my dignity.
Leaving the house as a black man opens up the door to be humiliated by police.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just saying that as a blanket statement. I'm saying that just based on my experiences as a 45-year-old man. Like, every decade in my teens, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, I've been stopped by police. And I guarantee, like, I get it that they have a job to do, but why am I always looked at as the enemy? And just, you know, I remember specifically when I was a principal, middle school principal, and I'm leaving school after a 12-hour day. 12-hour day, I'm going to praise and worship rehearsal. You know, a long day of work, dealing with stress. I figure, you know, I'll go to rehearsal, praise the Lord, get some of that stress out. As I'm walking down the street, two regular dress, street clothes men grab me, just snatch me up as I'm walking around the corner, and I feel like I'm getting robbed.
Right.
I don't even know they're cops at first. I feel like I'm getting robbed. They're going in my pockets. Where are you going? What are you doing? Then after a few seconds, I see the badges swinging. Of course, they got them turned backwards. I can't see names or anything, but they're telling me I look suspicious. Of course, my fight or flight kicks in. I'm uncomfortable. I'm afraid. I don't know if I'm about to die, get shot, or whatever. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I got a bachelor's degree. I got a master's degree. I got another master's degree. I'm working on a doctorate degree at that time. And still, as a principal of a community, you know, a well-respected gentleman still having to go through the humiliation of looking suspicious based on the color of my skin. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
So it's interesting because, you know, when you say go about doing their job, and we use these terms protect and serve, and then tie that to Amy Cooper, who chooses to dramatize a false situation to weaponize the perception of the New York City Police Department of black men. So when we say do their job, the real question that we have to ask is in the heart of the very DNA of the NYPD in this case, what is their job? Now, if they believe their job is to control black and brown bodies, and they've been socialized as an institution to control black and brown bodies, and we see that that's essentially what Stop and Frisk was.
Absolutely.
It was all about control black and brown bodies. It was all about treat people who are doing the same things differently if they look differently. You know, when you think about what just happened for the last 3-4 months, we had social distancing policies in place. We had, folks had to wear masks. We had, you have to walk 6 feet apart. In communities of color, you saw tough enforcement.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
People being actually picked up, body slammed by police officers
for
not wearing a mask, with police officers sitting on their face.
And wearing other parts of town.
And let's call it, because Cocktails and Convo, this, and plus, you know, I'm a little lit over there, so
Yeah,
let's keep it real. I know, you know, I have a low threshold. In white communities, it's not in other parts, it's in white communities. Let's call it out, because it is uncomfortable.
Let me hand you that mask.
Let me hand you that mask. You do know you should socially distance because of the policies. So same actions, different consequences. Why is that? How is that?
Which has been
And taking it back to where our initial passion is, education. Absolutely. How many schools have you served, whether as a teacher, a dean, an assistant principal, deputy superintendent, etc.? My work as a teacher, after school coordinator, deputy cluster leader, deputy executive director, we've had to deal with disproportionate treatment of children of color.
Absolutely.
You know, in so many schools, you would go into certain schools, black children have to turn in their cell phones. In white schools, children are allowed to use their cell phones in class, even whether it's to incorporate it in the lesson or simply to have it to listen to music during their lunchtime or during their recess. Same behavior, different treatment.
And hold that thought, because now we got to switch to a segment of the show called The People Want to Know.
The people want to know, the people want to know, the people want to know. Man, I got a question.
The People Want to Know is just a segment where we take questions from people all over and we do our best to try to answer them. So here we go. We got Michael from Queens. Michael from Queens wants to know, will Donald Trump be elected president again in 2020?
It's up to the people. You know, is it rapid fire or can I like?
Go ahead, please.
You know, I got to tell you, it's up to the people. If Joe Biden, who's the nominee on the Democrat side, selects the wrong vice presidential running mate, and it makes people who right now are amped up feel disappointed or feel, because look, if you really go back and look at Joe Biden's track record, shaky is a compliment. And he's already not looking like 2 on point. yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic. I know. No, all that is part of it, right? He's looking like how the table is feeling. I'm keeping it real with you, right?
Right.
So it's like, and in a world that is even more insecure, more tenuous, and in America after 2021, let's say, that's going to be more afraid, you're going to need to make sure that the president is solid and that his whole team is solid.
We keep hearing about vice president, female.
Well, it's going to have to be a woman. It's going to have to be a woman, and I believe it should be a woman.
You're the vice presidential candidate. Who are you selecting as your running mate?
You know, I mean, there are a lot of solid women. You know, I don't have any stake in the game, but look, we need a person who can become president day 101. Because I hate when they say day one. Like, you know, Joe Biden isn't going to die the first day of president, you know. So, yeah. So, no, I just hate when people say that. Yeah. But we do need a person whom Joe Biden will place the confidence in the same way President Barack Obama had that relationship with him when he was vice president. So I don't have any names. I mean, some people say, well, you need a person who's been an executive, like a mayor or a governor. Some other people say folks like Kamala Harris or like a congresswoman. Especially one of the big conversations around the country right now is police reform. So the sister who's in Florida, I think her name is Val Demings, she's a congresswoman. She was one of the impeachment managers. She seems solid.
Answer Michael's question. Will he be the president again?
It's up to the people. You know, if we say...
Will he be the president, yes or no?
He is not going to be the president if America is really serious about racial reconciliation, about reform, and about rewriting. Not rewriting, because I don't think we should rewrite history. I think we should correct history. Absolutely. You know, that's why I'm not big on all of these people getting rid of some of these statues. Some of those statues I don't understand why we're getting rid of, but you know, that's for another conversation.
A whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
Some of it is absolutely necessary, though. Right. I would agree. Now, you heard it, Michael. You heard it.
Trump is going home. Trump is going home, but you got to do your part.
All right, the people want to know. Jason from Brooklyn has 3 words.
Yes.
Biggie or Jay-Z?
Biggie or Jay-Z, who's better?
Biggie or Jay-Z, who you got?
Jay-Z. And let me just tell you why. I know a lot of people, oh man, you're going to deport me from Brooklyn. You know, I rep Brooklyn. Here's the thing. I think Jay-Z respects Biggie. I think Jay-Z, though, if you look at the body of his work, just the level of... Jay-Z, I think a harder debate for me is Jay-Z versus Tupac. Just from the point of view of their level of complexity, their level of being able to rap about a range of things. Like, I'm surprised Jay-Z hasn't really come out explicitly with what's going on now. I know his wife Beyonce dropped some jewels recently, some music. But in terms of, I can't see what Biggie Smalls would have been saying in the moments that we're in. Like, I just think like, when I listen to old Biggie joints, dope stuff. As fly as we are, I don't really want to hear about Versace and Gucci and all that. Like where we are right now as a society, it shows a level of superficiality. Absolutely. And I think that where rap started and why rap started, hip hop started, it was really about speaking truth to power and about challenging the status quo, challenging the system. So I just think that lyrics-wise and in terms of substance, to me, is Jay-Z. And that's no disrespect to Biggie Smalls.
Oh, listen, I'm a huge Biggie fan. Right. Like, I remember unwrapping the package on the CD of Ready to Die. Like, right. I remember me and my boy sitting in the parking lot. Like, we opened it up and just sat and bobbed out to it. And boom, 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 right. boom, 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 boom. Back in the day, like, right. that's how it started. But Jay-Z, to me, like, And as far as I'm concerned, there's no debate. He's the GOAT. He is the GOAT. 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. Took his little break like MJ, who's also the GOAT, and then dropped more heat. And the fact that he's now 50 years old and is still so relevant and can still break down a 16 in a way that is just like art. It's really like art, and to me, it's just no question. It's definitely Jay-Z.
I got that one right.
So Jason from Brooklyn, we both going with Jay-Z.
Right.
Oh. Now let's take it up top to the BX. Michelle from the Bronx wants to know if her kids will be going back to school in the fall. What do you think?
Yes. So I'm not in the system, and real talk, I'm not even of the system. Because I'm standing inside looking at the system like, I don't know y'all. I don't know y'all.
That's deep. Y'all meaning the system?
I'm meaning the promise of what my parents are Haitian immigrants. And I look at en forme, my boule, right? And I look at what education has done for me and my 5 brothers and sisters. You know, Brownsville born, Crown Heights raised. And sometimes I worry about the opportunities that education brought to me and my siblings and even my parents. I don't know if it's going to be the same for so many children who depend on school. Here's my thing, Michelle from the Bronx. I was talking to somebody recently. I'm like, if I were the chancellor, I would tell every school, okay, what's your technology like? Every kid could be in school today, even if half of them are home and half of them are in school, still being live streamed in the present. Like this idea of creating uncertainty for parents when we're supposed to be engaging and empowering parents is troubling to me. Absolutely. The fact that, if I'm a parent with 4 children, 2 of whom are in elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school, and the schools aren't coordinating even within a district to figure out the schedule, then what am I telling my boss if I have to go to work? If the whole idea of why there was hesitation to close schools to begin with was to make sure that schools were a space for children to get food, a place where parents needed to make sure that their children were being supervised, we're right back to square one.
So as we're speaking about education, and then we're also thinking about the pandemic that we're still experiencing, the pandemic of COVID, the pandemic of racial inequity. You're a father.
Absolutely.
So as a father, what do you hope that your kids take away from this time? They're going to get past it. They're going to remember this time. Like, what do you hope that they take away from this moment of unrest?
That they matter. For me, I think the most significant thing, and it goes back to this idea of where we started with defunding the police, where let's flip it to reimagining law enforcement, right? I would also say this is an opportunity to reimagine education. Like how to make education relevant and significant and impactful for young people to recreate America and recreate the world. So what I want for my children is for them to be able to recognize the connection between history and the present day technology and the new future that they want to imagine. So I'll give you a quick story. I remember speaking to one of my daughters about her frustration and her feeling that she was losing trust in the NYPD, and she's the highest ranking person in the Explorers, which is like the youth program, the Explorers program. And so many of her Explorers team, they wanted to quit, especially after the protests and how the NYPD were reacting to the protesters and conflating the protesters, the looters, and the rioters, and then the killing of George Floyd. And I remember saying to her that it's always been young people that shaped history. Like if you really think about it, Dr. King was only 26 when he led the Montgomery bus boycott. Like he died at 39. You know, like and if you like, and again, I'm not preaching religion, but let's just talk about history books. Jesus Christ was 33 when he died, right? He was like stepping to people at 12 years old in the temple, right? Again, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying just from a book point of view, like a history point of view. It's always been young people that have been able to project a different future, a better possibility of what the world could be. So for me, I want like my children to recognize their power, and I always reflect on the way my parents raised me and the power of identity. Like being almost 50 means that I was born in the early 1970s, and I was developing my identity 10, 11 years old. Ronald Reagan was the president. Mm-hmm. What was going on in America with Haitian people? We had HIV, like we brought HIV. We were part of the 4-H club. We were boat people. We were the poorest people in the Western Hemisphere. That's what the world was telling Haitian kids. And
that's
Haitian
not
people.
Your kid's narrative.
That was not even my narrative. The way my parents shaped my sense of who I am as a Haitian American, it was, we were the first free nation in the West. We were free even before America was free, if you consider the fact that America still had enslaved people of African ancestry all the way until 1865. 1. 2, there was no Louisiana Purchase. Get it right. It was a Louisiana disposal. Napoleon got rid of the Louisiana territory after he lost Haiti. So Haiti is part of the reason America doubled in size. But if you take the point of view of Haiti is garbage and America is everything, you think Thomas Jefferson was a brilliant negotiator. Remember when we were in school, it was Thomas Jefferson negotiated the purchase of the Louisiana territory for $10 to $15 million. He is a brilliant, he outwitted Napoleon Bonaparte. No. If you take a step back and look at the bigger story, you understand Napoleon said, "Dag, I'm not gonna be able to expand the French Empire westward because I lost Hispaniola, I lost Haiti. So let me just get rid of it."
So you're going into the whole history lesson now. Our show's only an hour.
Right.
But point being that in spite of what history tells us about who we are, right? Your kids are not going to...
Let me put it like this, and I'm going to respectfully borrow something from you. When my parents raised me in the way that they taught me and shaped my identity and the way I teach my children, and teach other people's children, is education saves lives. It's really about when you have access to real education and you really understand the real story from every perspective, you really understand that as young people, especially people of color, you matter. You absolutely matter, and that you have a place in the world.
I salute you. I respect you. And on that note, we can end with education saves lives.
God bless you.
My next guest is a phenomenal educator. She's been with the Department of Education for 25 plus years. She's a phenomenal educator. She never misses the opportunity to uplift others with her wisdom. Without further ado, my next guest, Dr. Mauricier Deagle-Vaya. Dr. Deagle-Vaya, thank you so much for joining Cocktails and Convo. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's only right that we celebrate this moment appropriately. Now, the show is called Cocktails and Convo, but I stepped it up a notch.
Okay.
Stepped it up a notch. So we got some Armand Dubrignac that we will partake in for episode 1.
All right.
If you will
Thank you
please
so much for
indulge
having me. I
me.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here. Do you know why we toast?
No, but I do libations for those who came before.
Libations, those who came before.
That's right, because we're always walking with our ancestors. So tell me why you toast.
Well, there's several reasons, right? So back in the day, people used to actually put toast inside the drink because they liked the way that the toast would marinate within and create this interesting taste, right? Which where toast came from. But then there's also research I've done where, of course, people would clink glasses because they said that the sound of the clink would enhance all their senses at the same time. And of course, it was a celebratory moment as well. But then back in the medieval times, the host would host these parties, but there was all of this poison. Like people would poison people's drinks, right? So
Who's gonna drink it first?
crazy. But what the host would do, he would say, pour some of yours into my drink, and I would drink it as a sign to show you that it wasn't poison. But if you trusted me, you don't have to pour, just clink my glass, which was a sign of trust. So episode 1, Cocktails and Convo, we're toasting to trust,
All right, I love it.
greatness, and black excellence.
Yes, oh, I love it. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. You are someone who has been so influential in education. And what's interesting, your Facebook profile says, I'm a transformational leader executing social change and redefining generational legacies. I love that. Talk about that.
Sure. So that is my branding statement that you just read. So you're doing your research, Dr. Rux. I love it. So yes, transformational leadership, executing social change, and redefining generational legacies. That is about wherever I stand, children, communities, families, they win. Right? So as an educator, at the heart of my work has been around transformation. I love turning around schools, working with leaders who are in the most challenging of challenging situations, helping them figure out ways in which, what can they see that they haven't seen, and positioning them to just win, right? So what that looks like is when my leadership shows up, if you have been experiencing poverty, if you have been experiencing marginalization, if you have been disenfranchised in any way, I have a vision that where I stand, that those things get reversed, those things get eradicated. And I enroll people in that vision, right? So that is teachers, parents, students, right? Giving agency to the people who haven't had the agency. And I really believe that all of this starts with the vision, right? So without the vision, people perish. We've heard that from the good book, right? And if you don't have a vision for where you're going, you can't see the image, you can't tell who's there, you can't see the sights, the smell, the sounds, the taste it. Having the vision actually gives you something to anchor it on. And that's where the transformation can take place, because you can alter the vision any way you need to go. We've often heard lately around the idea of changing the narrative. If we are truly the authors of our own lives, we get to tell the story as we need to tell it, right? So it doesn't matter if you feel like, you know what, I've been marginalized, I've been hurt. That might be a brutal truth, but then you can figure out how can you turn that story to serve you. That's the transformation that needs to happen.
Not being stuck in that same
That's
space.
right. You keep on repeating the vicious cycle over and over again. Oh, you know, I come from poverty. My parents were poor. Their parents were poor. Their parents were poor. You actually get to say, we've survived poverty.
Absolutely.
Right? And now I'm about to make a difference. And this is what that difference looks like. And that's where the vision comes in. So you're not necessarily stuck in the place that you were born or the zip code that you're in. I really believe in people transcending those pieces. And the way you transcend is to have a bigger vision. And that's why leadership is so key. If you have a leader who is able to help you see the bigger version of you, you will be able to jump beyond any barricade that has been set.
Leadership does matter. Why? So, and I absolutely agree with you that leadership matters. It's imperative. Why isn't effective leadership at every area? Like, we know that. We know how important the leader is. How do we still get to spaces where we have incompetency in leadership?
Well, it takes all. it takes
I went there, I'm
everyone.
sorry.
No, it's real. And I think, you know, I used to really believe that leaders were born, right? Like you're born, you're a natural born leader, right? And then I've gone through a lot of different training programs, and I've seen people evolve within their leadership. For me, it comes down to my personal question is, why would you want to lead this particular thing, right? And my why matters because that's going to determine how I choose to show up. People want to be leaders for all kinds of reasons. Some people like the title, right? So they love a position, right? I have a fancy title behind my name, and that validates me. Other people are like, you know what? I'm bringing purpose to the situation because I'm standing here, like we talked about earlier around the transformational legacy quote from my branding statement. Right? When I show up, what happens? So it is hard to tell the heart of someone, right? Like when they apply for jobs or when they go forward, you're like, well, why would you want this? To me, the ultimate deciding factor is the results, right? When you look at somebody's career, when you look at the work that they've done, what's been the results? Because they showed up, what happened? Right? And if it's the same old story or other people are getting blamed, it's like the rearranging of the deck chairs on the Titanic. Like what's the story when this person shows up in the room? That tells you everything about their leadership. So you don't really have to. I think sometimes people want to believe because, again, the titles folks have had or the positions that they've held, that means that because they've been that, they would be great at this. And I've also seen leaders be successful in one arena, and they may change the geography of that arena and not be successful in that new spot. So it's this idea of you want to match people to the right situation within leadership, not just place them, right? And not just make assumptions because they've been something that they can now be this thing.
Yes, right. If you could define, right, because we're thinking about leadership, which goes across every area. However, as educators, if you could articulate the current state of education right now, what would you say?
Hopeful.
Talk more about that.
So I really have a vision with all that's going on. So let's talk about what's going on. What's going on? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Folks have been quarantined.
Which pandemic?
The COVID-19. I know. There you go. Right? Which pandemic?
We can toast to that. Which
pandemic?
pandemic?
There we go. I think that's a definite, right? So we're in the middle of this health pandemic with COVID-19. The world is finally saying, yes, it is not okay for the police to brutalize black men and women. Murdering them in the uniform is not protection. That's groundbreaking. And then we have these different agencies. So within New York City, the Department of Education is a part of the city agency that are pretty much positioned now to take on a stance. And I think the unique stance that education has is to be the hope, right? We're not the police department. We're not the healthcare system. We're education. And because we're education, we get to be a stand for oneness. We get to be a stand for the humanity and identifying people as human, not just by color, religion, and gender. It is an opportunity for us to create an inclusive environment where our children who are in general education, special education, black, white, Asian, right, regardless of sexual orientation, are seen and heard because we're education. Other agencies may have to respond to different things, but because we are education, we actually get to hold a bigger vision because we teach and we learn within the agency we serve. And what I also am hopeful for is that we don't become reactionary to the ills of other agencies and what they're positioned to do. Because the uniqueness about being in education is that we actually get to create what it looks like to be learned.
We are education and we are hope.
We're hope.
I love that.
We're hope.
I love that.
Right? It's key. Right? If other places, if you want to say, okay, well, you did this bad thing, so now you gotta pay the price. That's not us. We actually get to teach you. We get to coach you. We get to offer you the art. We get to offer you sports. We get to offer you higher learning. We get to offer you a whole bigger span from where you were. We get to be your vision in education.
Absolutely.
Right? So my word is hopeful, right? And that the powers that be, if you're in a position, and I don't take myself out of that, because I really believe if you're in the system, you're of the system. Oh, wait a minute, Maury, you are the man, you are the system.
You are the system.
You are, right? Like if you are working, if you are in the classroom, if you are leading the schoolhouse, if you are running the district, it's you, right? And I get to say it's me, right? I don't get to point fingers and be like, oh, if only so and so who is in that position would do what they're supposed to do. That is so unfair, and it's so it's cowardly.
So, and granted, so we're educators, by title, but I always say that we're all educators. Whether you're in the field of education or not, you are an educator.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you went to college to be an educator, or you went to college to be a architect, or you didn't go to college at all, you are educating someone. Someone is watching everything you do, everything you say. You are all educators. And with that, we're actually going to shift to a segment really quick where I call it the People Want to Know segment, right? Okay. And this is just a segment where we take questions from people all over, and they just ask us questions, and we do our best to answer their questions.
The people want to know, the people want to know, the people want to know. Man, I got a question.
Once again, this is a segment we just take questions from people all over, and we do our best to try to answer those questions. Remember, if you have any questions, please check out the bottom of the screen and send your questions there. We'll be taking questions every day. So send your questions in, and we'll be sure to get to them when we can. First question is from Carmen from Brooklyn. She wants to know, who is better, Prince or MJ? I already know where we're going with this.
Prince Rogers Nelson, of course.
Look, the full name, Prince Rogers Nelson.
Prince Rogers. Can I tell you my Prince? Okay, so why Prince? I love Michael. Okay,
you can't not love Michael.
Yeah, you gotta, Michael. I do love and respect Michael, but I am team Prince all day. Prince is just, yes, I've been a Prince fan, and you know this, Dr. Rux, right? Just teasing me with this question. But I do think it's talking about leadership in a story, stories I've known about Prince. I've been a big Prince fan since I was like 9, so it's been a 30-something year love affair with Prince. Everything from, like when he changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol, I remember being a fan during that time, and it was just like, okay, what's he doing? Why is he doing this? And it was about the battle between him and Warner Brothers, and he was wearing slave on his face. And not only did he get out of that contract and eventually acquire the masters of his recording, because at that time he didn't own Purple Rain, which is crazy, right? Imagine creating something and not owning it. And he used to say, if you don't own your masters own you. And now, it's been 4 years since he's passed on. I challenge you to see that symbol and not know who it is. He also rearranged how the music industry functions, right? He was one of the first artists to actually say, I'm going to sell my CDs as attached to a concert ticket price, right? And immediately the album goes to #1. He just was really brilliant about the way he thought outside the box.
And the way he took a stand, like even changing his name.
Yep.
It's so relevant to today.
Yes, it's the ultimate branding lesson, right? And then I own this, and I own my music, and I get to redefine. So you, record company, don't tell me when and when I can create. I get to create, which I think speaks directly to the leadership work that we look at in education. How exciting it would be if leaders really felt that level of empowerment, that I'm going to lead in spite of. I'm going to be brave and go forth and bring forth the product that I know is best for kids, because that's what kids deserve.
In spite of.
In spite of. Doesn't matter.
So Carmen, you heard it. Yes. Carmen from Brooklyn.
That's right.
Dr. Digovaya goes with Prince.
Prince.
So now Marcus from Queens wants to know, will there be a second wave of COVID-19?
Okay, so I'm not Dr. Fauci, so this is going to be a non-disclaimed message. Like, don't call us at Cocktails and Convo about this one. But just looking at different states and how they're going. There's all these attempts to get back to this new normal, right? I don't think we're ever going to go back 100% the way we were. And you see that with the reopening of things, the beaches, the parks, and so forth, there's always like this other wave happening in other places. My one wish around COVID-19, and this speaks back to that oneness element I was talking about earlier, is I wish people would really see themselves in other people. Like when it happened in China and then it happened in Italy, where were you in Brooklyn? Did you sit there and say, oh, that's China, that's Italy? No, that's human.
We thought we were better than
We did.
COVID.
We thought we were better than COVID. They thought, oh, that was a problem over there for that side of the earth. And then it came onto this side of the earth. And that's the same. That's why I'm proud of the response to the George Floyd murder worldwide. Because, yeah, if you don't do something about George Floyd, and you think, oh, we think it's black men, or then it's black women, and then who's next? Because the hangman comes for everybody. Right? He doesn't stop and say, oh, wait a minute, not that group. No, the hangman comes for everyone eventually. So being able to stand up to these injustices, so whether there's COVID, yeah, most likely there will be another wave, especially if we're not responsible, whatever that looks like. But being connected and seeing, okay, that's Florida, but Florida is us. And that's New York, and New York is you. Absolutely. Right? So being wise about how you connect to this illness and being, just being responsible.
Even if we take a look at China now, they're
expecting
an increase.
Yep.
So if it's happening in China, we thought it wouldn't happen. It's already happening, yes. So we have to be mindful that it can absolutely happen again, right? And be safe. We got to take precaution. Granted, I believe that the social distancing can help. And of course, the warm weather makes people want to loosen up a little bit, but we absolutely have to be cautious. Absolutely. So, Marcus from Queens, it's highly likely, but be safe out there.
That's right.
So Keith from the Bronx wants to know, interesting. Keith wants to know if we can help him find the hot tub time machine so we can redo 2020 all over again.
That's so funny. Redoing 2020? Why, Keith? Keep going. Keep going. It could still be going, right? It is still the year of vision. It still is. You still can have perfect vision.
The vision just has to change a little bit.
Vision shifts a little.
It's not the same vision.
Yeah, I know. We all were on the eve of 2019. Like 2020 is my year.
Vision.
Yeah, like,
I'm focused. I'm focused, man.
But the reality is that it's still very. I mean, look at the things that have occurred this year. I'm really blown away. And then we didn't even talk about our young people and how they're out protesting. I really believe the youth will lead us.
They will.
They will lead us. The youth they're on it. They're doing a little hacking of the Trump rallies and all those different things.
And the youth always lead us. They really do.
Always do.
So even speaking about that, you're a mother, right? What do you hope your kids take away from this moment, from this moment of protest, this moment of unrest, from pandemic of COVID, pandemic of racial inequity? Like, what do you want your kids to walk away from? Because they're going to be, you're not young that long.
Right. What I want my kids to walk away with. People care. So everything from, like, last week, my son's teachers came and they delivered his senior shirt and they took pictures with him. So even though schooling has been redefined, there are people who still very much so care about you, and they will show up for you for the special moment because he's a 5th grade graduate, right? So and that people don't necessarily need to look like you to care about you, right? So it's like, give people a chance. I would also want my children to understand and be able to see who they are and stand for that for themselves, and not based on what others tell them they are and who they can be.
Interesting.
Right? The idea that they are individuals, and in knowing their I, they become a stronger we for the world. There are going to be a lot of people telling them who they are, what they can and cannot do, and for them to know, like, even in this season where we've been quarantined, remote learning, racial unrest, even in this season, I get to define who I am. I get to author my life. I get to be my own stand for transformation all the time.
Still the author, absolutely.
All the time. And I get to narrate the chapters, choose the characters, choose the scene, and change those things when they no longer serve me. Even if I'm in
author of your book. I totally
100%.
agree with that. Absolutely.
100%.
Author of our story. So I want you to tell the people, it's a voting year.
Yes.
Election year.
Yes, get out and vote.
We got elections coming up. November, the biggest election. What would you tell the people?
Get out and vote. Use your agency. I watch social media and people are on it all the time with their commentary and how they feel, and they get angry about the powers that be and who's in charge and who's doing what and how they're doing it. If you're not out there exercising your right to vote if you're not out there talking and speaking up, using the platform, and whatever platform you have, your platform might be the classroom. Shout out to Dave Chappelle. I loved his platform of using, 846.
Yes.
Like everyone has a platform. So it's a matter of, are you willing to use your platform? Are you willing to use your voice? Is it writing something? Is it creating something? Is it dedicating something? Is it organizing something? We all get to use our platform to be heard. And if you don't like how things are, help them change. Be smart about that. Get organized. Shout out to the youth. I see how you are moving mountains to make it clear what you believe and what you want to see happen. And I really believe that, the Generation Xers and the folks who are older can actually team up with our millennials and our younger folks to actually make a difference. We're seeing how it's not only about being 18 and being able to vote, but thinking about how are you engaging high school students, because they have a voice too and they want to be heard, right? And we're seeing how younger folks are using social media platforms to actually transform the world that we're living in. And back to my comment earlier, it's about the results. If you don't like the results you're getting, do what you need to do to change those results. And when you enroll people in your vision, they'll walk with you. So get out and vote, use your voice, find your platform and share it.
Create a vision, change results when doves cry.
That's right, exactly.
Thank you so much. I salute you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Thank you for checking in with Cocktails and Convo. Look forward to hearing more from you. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Digo Valle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dr. Ross. This was great.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Cocktails and Convo.